Hi, folks. Welcome to SchezzWho. Last night, July 18th, I was fortunate enough to interview Virginia Beach School Board District 5 candidate Melinda Rathers. Tonight, I am continuing with another Virginia Beach School Board candidate, District 4 seat challenger Dr. Alveta Green. Before I bring her on, I want to shout out the most important figure to SchezzWho. And of course, that would be, let me get on over to the banners. It's always a great show to bring up is all these banners to let you know what's important on the show. Like, of course, my great wife, Andrea Dixon, who literally created the channel. And I didn't know how to do that. So remember, behind every great wife is an idiot husband. So love you very much. I also want to shout out Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. That's her location there in 4206 Portsmouth Boulevard down the street from me. She also has a great location across from Regent University in that shopping center. I was there recently to enjoy her fried whiting and some macaroni and cheese. It was a great dish. So next time you guys are looking for dinner options, I would suggest Ellen's Hope Style and Barbecue. I also want to shout out my good friend, Mr. Seiko Varner, who pointed me in the direction of doing YouTube shows when we created the Beach Brothers show back in 2020. His business, Positive Vibes Incorporated, is entertainment-based and consulting. It does credit fixes, it does tax resolutions, it lends private money, it does debt consolidation, all that good stuff. So want to make sure all you guys look to Mr. Seiko Varner for help on those needs as well. Now, let me bring that back off here. Now, I know tonight Donald Trump will take to the stage at 10:09 Eastern Time. He's going to deliver his first TV speech post the attempt on his life this past Saturday. I won't be covering that live like I did with the debate because I honestly don't want to be up that late. So I'll catch the rounds tomorrow, watch the shows and commentary afterwards. But tonight I'll bring on special guest Dr. Alveta Green, running for Virginia Beach School Board's 4th district seat. Let me go ahead and bring her on right now. How are you doing on this relatively stormy day?
I am doing wonderful, Conrad, and I'm excited about being on your show this evening.
Well, thank you so much for that. Let's hope that I bring as much excitement as I can to this great topic of furthering the education of Virginia Beach students. Today I had a bit of a long day, a lot of writing. So I get to relax and talk about politics now. Let's begin with school board in 2024. And it's great to see that you want to jump into it. May we begin with your history and what led you into the education field?
Well, it started back in Norfolk, Virginia, where I was born and raised by two educators. My mother was an elementary school teacher, and my father was a teacher, and then he moved into school counseling and dabbled a little bit also in school administration. Fast forward in college, I majored in English, and when I graduated from Virginia State University, I was an English teacher and had my first teaching job in Norfolk at Booker T. Washington High School. From there, I married the military, so I was able to build a wonderful resume because I had a lot of neat experiences throughout the United States and abroad, including teaching in Germany for 2.5 years. And then when we returned from Europe, I was what I listed on my resume as a domestic engineer, which meant mom at home raising my daughter. When I re-entered the workforce, I then had a master's degree in school counseling. So I returned to work as a school counselor. I have been very fortunate that I have been able to work in many different school divisions abroad in the United States, urban, rural, suburban. And once I got into school counseling, because you work so closely with your building administrator, I was encouraged to go into school administration, which I did. And fast forward from there, I moved to central office where I had an opportunity to serve as a division hearing officer. working with students when they did not always make good choices in school, but we wanted them to stay in school. And then from there, I worked at the Virginia Department of Education as a student support specialist. That was a very neat opportunity to get to serve all of our 142 school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There I led several state initiatives, disproportionality, which is the over-identification of minority students in special ed. I led several state initiatives and trainings on cultural diversity, as well as monitoring to make sure our school division stayed on point with ensuring some of our most needy students have the supports in place academically that they needed. The wonderful opportunity that brought me back to home, to Virginia Beach Public Schools, came while I was at the Virginia Department of Ed. I returned back to Hampton Roads as the coordinator of guidance services. When I was hired in Virginia Beach, I was hired under a mandate to improve the school counseling program. At the time I was hired, school counseling services, and this was in 2005, was not meeting all the needs of all students. So one of the responsibilities I was given upon being hired was restructuring the school counseling program, which I did do with a great group of school counselors, principals that help us reform and ensure that our school counseling services that we delivered met the needs of all students. From that position, I moved to director of guidance services, which included the management of student records, as well as the school counseling program and AVIT. And then later, the last position I had for the school division was executive director for student support services. It was the first time the school division had implemented a comprehensive student support service model that not only included the typical services, such as AVIT, summer school, to help students academically, military academic support programs, Section 504, but also I got to incorporate what I love as well were the mental health supports, such as school psychologists, social workers, as well as we helped the division set up some of the first behavioral support programs for some of our elementary children, as well as integrating positive behavior intervention supports, better known as PBIS, into most of our schools. It's probably not too many jobs in the area of student support services that I have not had in my 39 years in public education.
Wow, that is the key word there is student support services. And this is a job that is key to helping students. And that is a rather large knowledge base. It's a large expertise base. Looks like you would be a good fit for just the role itself. And I definitely want to learn more regarding that, especially here for District 4. May you tell us a little bit about that district and prominent schools within it?
Absolutely. Well, District 4, I think, is a good mirror of probably what we see in society as a whole. We have a diverse population, community, a lot of different social economic levels. And we have roughly a little over 6,000 students who are enrolled in grades K through 8. I mean, grades K through 12. And keep in mind that the total enrollment for the school division is a little over 65,000. So we have good representation with our schools. We have roughly about 6 schools in District 4. Bayside 6, Newtown Road, Diamond Springs Elementary, Williams School, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later in conjunction with Bayside 6, Pembroke Elementary School, and also Renaissance Academy. And our students in District 4 go to Bayside High, but Bayside High is not in District 4. So that is the makeup and the composition for our schools. A lot of our parents work in different areas. 15% are in the services communities, such as hotel management, hotel services, food services. Then we have others that work what would be typically classified as blue collar in the areas of construction, manufacturing. And then, of course, we have people like me who are educators, school teachers. So I think we are a good representation, of what typical society looks like that is very diverse. From my experiences with the school division, and I have seen this also as a resident, we do have high mobility with some of our residents, given the economy, costs for housing as well. From my work with the school division, I do know that we do have quite a few students that are homeless. So again, there are a lot of different community circumstances that do impact our students' education.
Now, I'm a recent transplant from the city of Virginia Beach, now live in Portsmouth. But when I was a recent employee of the city of Virginia Beach, I was part of Parks and Rec, out of school time, did a lot of stuff in schools. And Pembroke Elementary was one of the ones I was able to visit, Diamond Springs, Newtown Elementary. So that area I got to see, and Bayside High is important to me as well. So it's good to see that you might have your hands on helping to shape the goings on of that district. And speaking of shaping, I want to move on to what your major concerns will be for the schools here in Virginia Beach, and how do you and the board make necessary changes for those concerns?
Well, first of all, I think, and some of this you may have seen in some of my campaign literature as well. One of the first areas of concern is ensuring that our teachers and staff, we have competitive pay. We are one of the lowest paying school divisions in Hampton Roads. And as you could probably are already aware, that does impact retention, being able to keep our teachers and other staff. Seeing that a lot of the mental health issues that we're now having in schools, I think it's also not only when we address our teacher pay scale, that we also look at other staff who may not necessarily be on the same scale with the teachers, such as, for example, our school psychologists and our social workers, because they are also hard to retain. With our staffing with our school psychologists, they are vital to helping us and our school counselors maintaining the well-being of our students, as well as most of our school social workers who are also licensed clinicians. So those are resources that we could tap into as well, but we have a hard time sometimes retaining them because, like our teachers, they can go somewhere else and make significantly more money. So addressing the teacher and staffing pay scale is a priority, I know, for myself, as well as I know with the board members. Another area, and I touched on that in reference to our school psychologists, is maintaining student and staff mental health, well-being. I was happy to see this year that the school division, with the leadership of my old department in student support services, they were able to secure almost a $400,000 grant from the Department of Education that will help with some of the mental health supports, making sure that our students and staff stay mentally fit and well, so that they can be good teachers, or our students can focus on academics and other things that students do in school. The other initiatives that I hope to have impact with, I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot about the continuous plan for improvement in terms of building structures. And I am already advocating, have been for a while, for what are we going to do with Betty F. Williams and Bayside 6. As you know, there are plans on the table right now with regards to a new building for Betty F. Williams, but we need to decide what would be the best place for our sixth graders. And I believe returning them to a building that was built in 1969, which is the current Bayside Middle, which needs to be given consideration as well, is not a viable option. Also, the plan on the table includes moving these sixth graders with Betty F. Williams students, which I believe is not viable because of developmental needs of students are different. Betty F. Williams is a 4-5 school right now. You add sixth graders in, that changes how students interact, even though plans are to have them in a separate part of the building. But then that stretches other resources we have, especially for students who fall under IDEA. We have students there that may need services under Section 504. And if you do not have the proper staffing as well, which would be hard to do, to accommodate in a building with grades 4, 5, and 6, based on the plans that I have seen so far. I will qualify that my statement with that no plans have been finalized. Everything is still being considered and in review as to what will be the final decision with regards to what to do with our sixth graders that are in currently Bayside 6 on Jericho Road, as to whether or not to put them back with Bayside Middle students where there really is no room, or do they try to squeeze them in this new building with 4th and 5th graders?
All right, that's a lot of stuff. And you also mentioned about your literature. I'm going to see here if I can go and share your site here on the screen. So give me 1 second. Right about there. Can you see that well?
Oh, I see.
Here's the agreen4schoolboard.org. I want everyone who is watching to head over there, read about more of Dr. Green, what is concerning for her and her ideas for changing for the better Virginia Beach School Board, and of course some contact information and some more resources to get probably in touch. Also donate for that as well. Let me stop sharing briefly because I want to get back into some questions. Some of what you mentioned, I will admit, were some of questions I might ask in the next couple of minutes, but I think I might ask it in such a way that we can tackle it a little differently. So it'll still be fun. I want to move on now to your thoughts on the school to prison pipeline and how should Virginia Beach School Board dismantle it?
Well, the best way to dismantle it starts, I believe, in kindergarten. A lot of times when students first enter school, that is so vital in helping, working with families very closely in terms of ensuring that students stay on track in school as well as out. I think a key piece also in helping to eliminate the prison to pipeline is also working very closely with our families in our communities. And sometimes that does not always happen. And one of the things that I look forward to once elected to the school board is more community engagement making sure our parents and all students understand the options that are available for them within Virginia Beach Public Schools. Virginia Beach Public Schools, as you know, Conrad, is a great school division, but sometimes all the stakeholders don't have all the information about opportunities in the school division. So I think knowledge is power. Power will help people make better choices. Thus, I think eradicating some of what you are referencing with the prison pipeline, students to prison pipeline.
All right. Good point, because the whole pipeline is something that goes back pretty far deep, as you mentioned, as far as kindergarten. So I like the idea of starting from the bottom so the entire thing can change at once. How about the idea of distance learning? What are your thoughts on it, and why it might have failed some kids in the district?
Well, I lived through the pandemic, helping support schools during that time, which was very, very challenging. I believe that students learn better by being in school, having that day-to-day contact with staff, with their peers. That was one of the purposes of schools when it was first created, socialization. And you miss that, I think, when you are not around your peers and your teachers. There are some benefits, though, for distance learning, especially at the secondary level, when students need special courses, when we do not always have certain offerings at a particular school. So to me, for maybe one course or two, there are advantages to having distant learning so that we can ensure any student can have the opportunity to take whatever course they want to take, and especially if it helps them toward meeting graduation requirements. But to me, the best options, of course, are face-to-face, but there are some great advantages when we do need to utilize distance learning to ensure that students are receiving courses and the instruction to help them graduate or get a subject matter in that they otherwise can't without it being online.
All right. It sounds like it is itself a tool that has its many needs. It's just it could also have some small drawbacks. The thing is, if needed in a pinch, we need to do what we need to do. My next thoughts are on the hot topic the past couple of years, at least in regards to people who would want to show up to school board meetings and make a lot of commentary. They always like to talk about school libraries and the books they're into it. So imagine that you are on school board after winning in November. What should you and school board do regarding stocking the library books?
Well, I think you're getting ready to want us to get into the book ban. So definitely, and I have stated that on several occasions when I have met with different groups. I've cited it a few times on my Facebook post that I do for the campaign, that we do need to end the book ban. Books, they are knowledge. And when you take books away from students and restrict them having access, you are limiting people from learning. A lot of students learn about places that they don't even know exist by reading books. And so, again, books are a powerful tool. I do know from working with Virginia Beach Public Schools prior to the book ban, we had mechanisms in place for parents to review books. And if there was a book that they did not want their child to read, they would not read it. Where the book ban is problematic, you have a few groups mandating what people will be reading. And that is not fair to other parents who were not a part of saying, oh, well, no one's reading that book. Again, that should be left up to the parents. And again, books that it's knowledge. And when you restrict people from learning, our society will not grow. And a lot of times it's marginalized groups that do not benefit when we have things in place that are restricted.
I believe that might also extend into the importance of molding the right curriculums in our schools, especially ones, in my opinion, that truthfully tell the American story. How do you and school board with you on it should address it?
And I think you're referencing some of the diversity and race pieces that some administrations are definitely trying to remove from curriculum.
Yes.
Again, it's not truth being taught when we start picking and choosing what comes out of curriculum. And I think it's very important, in order for us to know where we're going, we need to know where we have been. And so I say that to say that curriculum needs to be continued as we have been writing it, including with our learning objectives in terms of why things happened. This is where we are now. And we should not be able to paint a different picture, especially of history of groups in the past that have been marginalized. History is so important. 50, 60 years ago, Conrad, I would not be sitting here with you talking about running for school board if we had not had the civil rights movement. Because that's what has gotten me to this point. And students need to understand what the civil rights movement was about. It was not a bad thing. It was a good thing, in my opinion. And so even going far back as slavery, it is very important for people to understand how they got to the United States. Whether, it was, some of us who came from Africa, or some of us who came from England. Everyone has a right to understand their history, and it should not be shaped by someone else because it makes them uncomfortable that, their ancestors may have been a part of a group that was trying to oppress people.
I would agree. And I believe generally it should be important for students in Virginia Beach to learn about things like, say, massive resistance, or the concept of white flight, and how important it was to the founding of the city of Virginia Beach, those concepts of white flight, and how if people are scared to learn about things that might stem from being in the proximity of the buzzword of CRT, right here in Virginia Beach, we had Burton Station, which isn't that far. In fact,
that's in my district.
Of not even having full city services until the 2010s. And what is the reason why something like that happened? You got to study it and don't shy away from it. So I would agree that it is important to bring that up in a good, solid curriculum that is beneficial for all the students. From that, I would like to move now to the COVID learning gap, especially with students with learning disabilities. How should this be tackled?
Well, first of all, I know when I retired in 2022, we were tackling it in ensuring that students receive the extra supports to ensure that they will catch up. I think where we are still dealing with some of the residual effects from COVID has to do with the high rates that we're seeing throughout, not just in Virginia Beach or surrounding areas, the problems with chronic absenteeism. Because we do have some students that all may not have returned. And then when students did return, some of them, the attendance may not have been as it was before. So I think being vigilant and staying on top of why students are not coming to school, working with families to get them back in school, helping families, students, everyone in the community to understand that this is just not a school problem. It's a community problem. And I'll use for an example, I'm retired, but when I'm out during the day and I see a child that looks like they're supposed to be in school, I pause and wonder, okay, so why are you not in school? and especially if they're outside and they're not homeschooled, they supposed to be in school. So I use that as an example to help people understand as well that it's not just, you know, it being a school problem. It is a community problem, because when students are not in school, more than likely they may be involved in something that, one, their parents don't know they're not in school, and two, that may not be in the best interest for their well-being or the community at large. So for me, the residual of, you know, what has happened with COVID, I think ties right now to the national problem that we're seeing with chronic absenteeism in public schools.
Good points. Good points. I believe some of the things that you mentioned earlier, I might try to bring up right about now, because you mentioned, and I scrolled through it on your site, that you are a strong advocate for equitable school resource distribution. So I want to bring back to the fact that last night I had on Melinda Rogers, who was also running for school board. She touched on fully funding schools and the current $1.2 billion City of Virginia Beach school budget. How would you like to manage that budget?
Well, I certainly have managed enough budgets. In terms of from a school board perspective, for me, in looking at equitable distribution of resources, I feel that in our district, we don't always get our piece of the pie, especially in terms of right now, the discussions around the building, which district or which schools we're going to build first. Um, I believe that those decisions need to be driven by student needs, not necessarily by community needs. And in this case, if you were to really look and delve into what the needs are of, say, for District 4 right now, we should be the priority for getting a new school. Our kids need it. You know, we have a lot of Title I schools. The one on the table being discussed is a Title I school. Betty F. Williams, that is a Title I school. And that means students do need extra supports to be successful. And we need to get them out of that old building so that we can continue to see growth with them academically. The other issue in terms of equitable resources is not necessarily pertaining to district, but even with staffing throughout the division. I look the compensation piece with our teachers. It covers a broad spectrum of things, but for me, the priority first would be with District 4 and ensuring that our students have a new school and that they will continue to thrive and be successful. And the other piece of that, we have to figure out what to do with our sixth graders. Yes, our students are doing well, but if you look at the data for our sixth graders compared to other sixth graders in the division, they are at the bottom. They are making minimum progress, but they can do better. We can do better, but we need to make sure they have the supports in place so that that can happen.
Indeed, and part of that support, of course, is teachers. It's one of the most fundamental parts of the entire educational institution. And you are already, as you mentioned, a strong advocate for competitive pay for teachers. I want to touch on that a little bit more. Competitive for the 757 area? Is it competitive for the state of Virginia? And remember, if something like Project 2025 happens and gets implemented, it eliminates the Department of Education on a national level. And that's going to tsunami on down and hit a school district like ours. So what are your thoughts on competitive pay from the top down?
Well, I think our teachers and any teacher outside of it, all teachers should be at the top of the pay scale. Our teachers, and especially in Virginia Beach, as teachers do everywhere, they work very hard. Teachers spend a lot of time, their time, doing things to prepare them so that they will be the best that they can be when they meet their students. And I'll use summer as a prime example. I bet there's not a teacher you could talk to right now that has not done something on his or her time to prepare for the upcoming school year. Whether they have not participated in some type of professional development activity that they were not mandated to do, but they wanted to do it because they know it will help them with instruction. They may have participated in some special program at a college or a university at his or her expense. And then let's talk about teachers when they're traveling, say throughout the summer and on summer vacation. They always think about, oh, I can incorporate something they saw on summer vacation into a lesson. So to me, the job is 24 hours, 7 days a week, and it doesn't stop when school closes in June. So for that and many other numerous reasons that we could talk about for the remainder of the evening, teachers deserve to receive a fair compensation for their time, their educational level, and the ongoing professional development that we all have to do. In Virginia, as in most states, teachers have to be recertified. Now it's every 10 years, but that recertification is not paid for by the school division. That recertification for them to be able to apply for their next license, that falls on them at their expense. So the pay piece, it is so important, and especially if we want to keep our teachers and other staff. And you can look at announcements now to see, there's still vacancies, not only in Virginia Beach, but everywhere. And we don't want to lose a math teacher from Virginia Beach because let's say another school division is paying their math teachers more, but that could happen. And that's why it would be wonderful if all the teachers could have the same type of compensation. And I recognize that, from state to state, it may vary because of the standard of living, such as in Virginia. Northern Virginia is a little bit different from Hampton Roads, but everyone in Hampton Roads should be receiving the same pay.
The last time I stopped by Virginia Beach City Council and offered them my thoughts, I was wearing my Virginia Beach Parks and Recreation shirt for out of school time because I had just gotten off a shift and I had signed up to speak for the topic right before they were going to vote on collective bargaining. Now, it went down 5-5 to 1, but I was there for parks. A lot of firefighters were there. A lot of cops were there because their associations were very strong in supporting collective bargaining. And notably, the Virginia Beach Education Association was strong for collective bargaining as well. I gave my thoughts that night. What are your thoughts both on the vote and perhaps whether or not it might be able to come back up in Virginia Beach?
The vote was very disappointing. I was happy to see that the Virginia Beach Education Association was out there advocating for our teachers to be able to take advantage of collective bargaining because it will allow teachers and other city employees to have a competitive pay and to have a say in what their pay should be. That is to be determined, I guess, in the next few months as to whether or not it will come up. I don't know where that sits right now, Conrad, with city council, if that's something that will happen, after the election. But yes, I do believe that our teachers should be able to be a part of collective bargaining.
I do as well. I generally like the idea of the organization having a little bit more say in their representation of self when it comes to city matters. Would you like to spend a minute or two just talking about how you think it would be stronger for the city if implemented?
I would say in terms of morale-wise, it would probably help a lot. And I know it would in the school division. In terms of collective bargaining, there are different ways that it could be implemented. So again, I think once, it is passed or voted upon, then we would be able to be in a better position to have those discussions as to how it actually would work.
All right. All right. Well, a lot of the questions I have for the school board have pretty much exhausted themselves. So I'd like to move on more for yourself. What's next for you, your candidacy in the next couple weeks to months?
Well, before we do that, can we talk about Project 2025?
Go ahead.
Because I think I would be remiss as an educator if I did not address my concerns about Project 2025, and I will keep them brief. Because that's a whole discussion in itself. You could do several shows on that. With Project 2025, as you know, we've heard a lot about it, Conrad, and I've even discussed it a little bit on some of my posts for school board. And I just want to make sure that that people go and read that document, because not only does it has implications, which we'll get into in a moment, for public education, but it has implications for everyone. So I do hope people will take the time to go back and read the executive summary or whatever chapter, it hits you the most. But for me, it is chapter 11, which is 44 pages. And yes, I did read all 44 pages that talk about the Department of Education, because I think I would be remiss that here I, as a candidate for school board and an educator, if I did not understand the implications of it. So I just want to make sure that, as a candidate, I could speak to why it's so important that, we make good choices about candidates in terms of, where they stand on certain issues. And with that document in those 44 pages, not only does it dissolve the Department of Education, but it also will take away some key supports to school divisions, such as Title I. Virginia Beach Public Schools has 16 Title I schools. And as you know, Title I was designed to help students achieve where we have poverty in our schools. And in District 4, in comparison to the whole school division, out of those 16 schools, 5 of them belong to me in District 4. Another area of concern with the Project 2025 in terms of the Department of Ed is the Office of Civil Rights is in that department and comes out of DOE. And you look at all the equitable things that the Office of Civil Rights ensures is happening, such as our disciplined school practices, which we didn't touch on, but again, that's another show. As well as the Office of Special Education and Disabilities. That's a part of the Department of Ed. And if you remove those services as well, that's truly is going to significantly have impact on our students who fall under IDEA. So there are a lot of implications with dismantling the Department of Education. And I just want to make sure that people are aware of that, and hopefully they will take the time to go back and look at different parts of that document. And again, Conrad, we could do a whole another show and discussion on that piece alone.
Well, I look forward to the possibility of, if I do a show on Project 2025 and all that related to later on in this year in the election, I'd like to have you back on and just shoot the breeze on that as well. Before I go on to my next question, I had wanted to point out that I know that the former president wanted to sort of distance himself from Project 25 a bit with his own Agenda 47. And I'm looking at it here on Wikipedia, and they still share many, many things, including which is massive cuts to the Department of Education. So because of that, regardless of whichever way it's tried to be broadcast as Agenda 47 or Project 2025, it's something to look up and be concerned about. I also got a couple of questions in from good friend Jan Taylor. A little late in the game, but let's see if I can squeeze these in here. It is clear that we have a shortage of highly qualified teachers. How would you go about recruiting and retaining African American educators, and what support would you put in place to ensure their success?
Okay, and that is an excellent question. Um, in terms of recruitment, we would have to work with our human resources department because as a school board member, I certainly can work with policies, Conrad and Jan, to ensure that we have a highly diverse workforce. But the grunt work of that will be done through what we develop in policy with our human resources department, because that's why we have them. And the second part of the question, Conrad, I believe it was something about training. Could you repeat that?
Get back on here. And what support would you put in place to ensure their success?
Okay, well, the supports that would be in place would be the many mentoring programs that we have in place with our new staff and new teachers to ensure that they are successful. And I recognize that, when you are working, in certain types of divisions where we don't have, a high minority of staff, that we would need to make sure that we have extra supports in place to make sure that everyone is successful and that they know that they are a valued employee just like everyone else.
Good. There's one more of hers. She actually had a few, but I think we already touched on several of those. But this one is, what actions would you take to speak to the disparities in discipline and academic achievement that disproportionately affect African American students?
Okay. The disparities, you said, with discipline practices, and that does impact me significantly because Renaissance Academy is in my district that serves the entire school division. And a lot of it, I think, as a school board member, we are all assigned to what is called discipline hearing committees. And that would be a prime opportunity to ensure that things were done correctly in terms of due process in schools, making sure that students had their voice was heard as well as parents. And then the other piece of it, that when consequences are given, we need to make sure that they were the appropriate consequence, especially not one that would cause them to suffer academically as well, because we just cannot allow that to happen. One of the things that we started a few years ago, and I'm sure that they may still do it. I'm not certain, but I'm sure. I think is the early on interventions too with our school counselors, as well as when we have a student that comes before the school board discipline hearing, that we do have someone there to advocate for that student in terms of making sure that they will continue to thrive and be successful and that they are able to go back to school.
All right. Well, that is the last structurally relevant to education question I have for the night. I do want to give our viewers and yourself a chance to get out. How do we get to follow you and donate to you and all of that good stuff?
All right. Well, you've already shared the website, so thank you very much. And there is a button on there for donations. Thank you. And then also, I'm on Facebook, and you can please follow and like my Facebook page at Alveta Green and the number 4 Virginia Beach School Board as well. Conrad, and to your listening audience, I am very excited about the opportunity to run for school board. And I do want everyone to know that I bring a unique perspective to the school board. I have all stakeholders' best interests. I am a parent, even though my daughter is now 38 years old. I do remember what it was like to have a student in a public school system. And so it's so important, for parents to understand, options and what we can do in working together. I'm also a grandparent. I have a 5-year-old who will be starting kindergarten in the fall. I've been a teacher. I've been a school administrator, central office administrator. I have an internal and external view of the school division. But one thing I want to leave with everyone, even though I was an employee of Virginia Beach Public Schools for 17 wonderful years, I do understand that when I am elected to the school board, that my role changes. I'm no longer an employee of the school division. My role is different as a member of the school board, because then I become governance. And that's an entirely different role. And I just want to make sure that the viewers and my constituents know that I do understand that it's two different roles, and I am prepared for that challenge. And again, I'm excited, and I hope to be the District 4 representative to the Virginia Beach School Board after the November 5th election. So thank you.
Excellent. What I want to do before we head on out is share the screen one more time with your website here so folks can look up and get involved. And as we see here, drop a line to you. And there's the donation box. I'd like everyone to go ahead and look at agreenforschoolboard.org. And of course, just make sure that they're able to learn more about yourself. And I want to be able to personally thank you for coming on tonight and sharing not only your ideas, but selling us on the idea that you're the great candidate for District 4 in November. Any final word you want to get out?
Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to meeting everyone on the campaign trail. I'm out on a daily basis in the community, meeting students and families, and I'm just excited, and I look forward to representing you in District 4.
That's great. Great to hear. Thank you again for coming on. And I want all the SchezzWho audience to go ahead and like this episode. I see several already happening, including a couple of heart reacts. Subscribe to the channel and, help it grow. Just right before I had on Councilwoman Lisa Lucas-Burke about a little over a week ago, I was at about 40 subscribers. Now I'm at 50. So I just want everyone to keep growing this channel. That way we can have more and more political information get out to you in the 757. And come back, of course, for the next episode. Dr. Green, I hope you have a great night. I'll catch everyone on SchezzWho a little later.
Thank you.